Hello, my name's Tom, and I'm back to talk to you about F1 Fantasy. It is currently Friday evening. We don't actually know at the moment if the race and qualifying is going to go ahead. Expect most of you have seen what's going on in Saudi Arabia, the images on social media and all that about this missile attack that's going on nearby the track, and we don't know as of the time of recording this whether the race is actually going to go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead with the video assuming the race and qualifying is going to go ahead. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I hope they come to the right decision on what to do there. If it was me personally at the track right now, I'd be pretty concerned, and I wouldn't personally want to be racing there or whatever job role I had at the track or whatever. I would be quite worried about doing that, but that's just me. But anyway, I'll assume that the race is going to go ahead for the time being, and we'll look at what the practice sessions have told us so far about what's going on. I realise I've got this on my team right now. Let's actually just flick this back to FP2 because we've got FP1 here. It's kind of not that important. We'll have a look at FP2 because that's more close to qualifying and race conditions. You can see Charles Leclerc came in with the top time fractionally faster than Max Verstappen, although Verstappen's lap of 1 minute 30.2 was on the medium tyre and Charles was on the soft tyre. And also Max's soft tyre run was aborted due to yellow flag, so we don't know how fast he is basically on the soft tyre. But regardless, you can see the top four again: Red Bull and Ferrari. These are where the bulk of our points are going to come from in fantasy again this weekend. It's really close between them, so it's really hard to tell who's fast, to be honest. But the fact of the matter is they are the ones to go for. Interestingly, the Mercedes did all right, slightly behind. They're still having trouble with their porpoising. Their ride heights have to be a lot higher than what the Ferraris and the Red Bulls are doing, because this bouncing around that the Mercedes are trying to cope with is the only way they can stop the car from smacking into the floor is basically by bringing the ride height up, and then that obviously makes the drag, like air resistance on the car a lot greater, so it's going to slow them down. And Mercedes are going to take a few races, I think, to work their way through these problems. So I still think Mercedes are overpriced in terms of fantasy at the moment, despite their relatively good performance in practice here. Let's go back to my teams for a second, actually. I just want to talk briefly about the actual track itself. I know I mentioned this in my last video, but the track itself in Jeddah is really fast. It's a street circuit. It's still got some blind corners, or relatively blind corners. It's dangerous. The bottom line is it is a dangerous track in more ways than one. In terms of what's happening at the moment. But in terms of actual racing, it's dangerous. And I think we need to take that into account when we look at our fantasy teams for this weekend. Because at the moment, like I say, ignore Team 2 and Team 3. We're looking at Team 1 here, the big boys. So in terms of my team at the moment, the only sub I've made so far this week is bringing in Ferrari for Red Bull, just because the price changes. You can see Ferrari's massively increased, and if I didn't bring in Ferrari for Red Bull when I did, I would have missed out on a big chunk of money. So I've still got 2 free substitutions to use this week. I purposely didn't chase the money this week because I wanted those 2 free substitutions until after the practice sessions. So I'm going to have a quick look in my team at the moment. There's a couple of different builds that I'm looking at the moment. Because of how dangerous the track is, I'm slightly worried about going Leclerc, Sainz and Ferrari, even though they do represent really good value for money. They look really fast. I'm still a bit worried about going straight in with the Ferrari. So a couple of things I could do is to ditch the likes of Sainz, and we could bring in someone like Ocon, and we can also therefore get rid of Perez and bump him up to Max, who's going to outperform him, and we kind of get left with a team looking like this. This website's so annoying, I've got to scroll around. So we could end up with a team, I've got 0.1 million in the bank with a team like this. So we've got Leclerc, who would be turbo drive, Verstappen and Ocon. Ocon looks kind of like a potential dark horse, I think. Alpine are looking kind of like good reliability from the most part from what we've seen. Ocon's look quick. Again, if we go back to the times here in FP1, Ocon was 8th here, ahead of Alonso by like 0.4 of a second. We go into FP2, again, Ocon is 8th again, consistent there, and Alonso again is down here a couple of tenths off. So Ocon also did really well in Bahrain. So I think Ocon represents some good value for money at the moment, and I'm tempted by bringing in Ocon as sort of a reliable, kind of safe-ish kind of pick. Also a bit of a differential. Does it say how highly owned he is somewhere down here? If we scroll down, so he's only owned by 13% as well, which is quite a nice little pickup if he does do well, compared to the likes of who we had originally, Sainz, who nearly half the entire population of Formula One fantasy managers have currently picked. For good reason, obviously, and he's obviously in my team at the moment as well. But I think Ocon could be a good shout, and getting Ocon in for Sainz also allows Verstappen, and Verstappen's clearly head and shoulders above Perez in terms of pace and everything. So you're probably going to get the extra points for out qualifying and out racing teammates. I know the points for out qualifying and out racing teammates are only worth like 5 in total, sort of thing, but it still adds up. So you want to try and pick the better driver if you can. And like I say, Ocon's looking kind of good, so I'm kind of tempted by him. And like I say, Alpine haven't really had any reliability issues. So other teams have had reliability issues, such as the Red Bulls, obviously, in Bahrain. Apparently, Christian Horner has said that they think they've fixed that issue. So I'm hoping that is true. Something to do with the fuel, unable to get the fuel out of the actual tank when they're running really low fuel. So obviously at the end of the race, they're kind of really low fuel, and they couldn't get enough of the fuel like from the tank basically to feed the engine, and the engine just cut out. So they think they fixed that issue, which is promising. However, there was another issue right at the end of FP2 where Tsunoda, his engine seemed to just cut out. I don't know the full ins and outs of what happened there. It just like right at the end of the session, his engine just like dropped basically. And again, so that's all 4 of the Red Bull family cars that have been affected by some sort of engine issue. Obviously, Gasly catching fire last week. So yeah, it's still a bit of a worry in terms of Red Bull. So like, this team I've got here, like I've just shown you, is a nice team. I think it's fairly balanced and fairly safe in terms of if there are reliability issues, I don't get hit massively. If we go in with like quad Ferrari sort of thing with both constructors plus Leclerc and Sainz, and Ferrari end up with some trouble, then we don't get hit so hard. And Verstappen's he's a good shout. So I'm quite happy with that team there. There are a couple of other options I'm going to look at in a minute. Just talking about reliability, also brings me on to Haas. Haas, in particular, Kevin Magnussen, have had some serious issues today. Barely got any laps in. Again, if we go back to the practice sessions, we'll see Magnussen 2 laps in FP1 because of some engine issues or some hydraulic issues. I'm not sure exactly what's gone on until some more information comes out. And only 13 laps done in FP2. It didn't. Definitely some reliability issues there for Haas, which was a worry last week, and it never sort of materialised. And are we now seeing a little bit of the troubles that we might have expected at the beginning of the season? We'll wait and see. You've got to watch very closely in FP3 tomorrow. Make sure keep your eye on whether Kevin Magnussen actually gets out in FP3 and does some laps. And even when he did do some laps, and when Schumacher did some laps, their times weren't super competitive. You can see Schumacher here in 13th place. So the Haas boys are a little bit of a question mark over them for me this weekend. If we go back to the team I had a second ago, let's just get rid of these boys. So this is the current team, like I say, I've got at the moment. If we go back to this website's so annoying that I can't just like make this larger, but there you go. Another option we could do, if Kevin Magnussen is going to be a potential liability this weekend, we can get rid of Kevin Magnussen. Again, we can bring in my favourite at the moment, the dark horse, Mr. Ocon. We could just do a straight swap for that. And then that leaves us with 1.7 million there. So yeah, that is definitely an option if we still want to go sort of all in on Ferrari. The other option I was looking at, let me just bring back K-Mag for a second. I've looked at other options without K-Mag, and actually there aren't basically anything, because other options would leave me basically trying to upgrade K-Mag to something like Schumacher or Latifi, given the funding, and I really, really don't want Latifi, and upgrading, well, is it an upgrade or is it a side grade or what to get Mick Schumacher for more money? I just don't like that option. So I think the best option is probably Ocon if I didn't want to go with K-Mag. So watch closely what's going in on FP3 and just before qualifying before I make that decision. The other option is just to leave it the same. There's basically those are the 3 options I'm going to have. So I think at the moment I'm currently kind of leaning towards bringing in Ocon, getting rid of Perez, pumping in Verstappen into here, because this team, like I say, with the track being high risk and everything, I think this is kind of you're not putting all your eggs in one basket with Ferrari, even though they look strong. Kind of splits the risk. You upgrade, it gets an upgrade from Perez into Verstappen. Um, it's kind of balancing. Do you want Perez and Sainz, or do you want Verstappen and Ocon? But it's not just Sainz and Perez versus Verstappen and Ocon. It's also versus the reliability of, are we going to trust the Ferraris to get through this weekend without incident? And we've already seen in FP2 that both Ferraris have tagged the wall. The walls are pretty close in to the track, and both of them in FP2 clipped it and damaged their cars. So I'm kind of leaning away towards going all in on Ferrari, but then it depends on kind of what F1 fantasy manager you are. Do you want to go all in on the best team, or do you want to go a bit conservative and spread the risk a little bit? Don't put all your eggs in one basket, sort of thing. And if that is the case, which I'm kind of leaning toward at the moment a little bit. I haven't made my decision yet, and I won't make my decision until much closer to qualifying on Saturday. But I'm kind of leaning slightly towards this team here. So I think that's pretty much it. I will say one last thing about the other member of my team here, Bottas. Bottas did say in an interview yesterday that he was concerned about the Alfa Romeo having some trouble basically through the high-speed corners. He was saying it looks pretty good and feels pretty good for all the slower medium corners and through the straight, which is obviously the majority of the tracks on the calendar. However, Jeddah is not like that. There's a lot of high-speed corners, so it does slightly concern me over Bottas, but not anywhere near enough to think about removing him from my team. God, I can't even speak anymore. So yeah, it's not enough to remove him by any stretch of the imagination, but I definitely will be monitoring the situation with Alfa Romeo to see how closely his performance reflects what he said in that interview. But yeah, for me, Bottas is a definite hold for the time being. He's increasing in value all the time. He's probably going to be out qualifying his teammate and doing better in the race. Yeah, I think Bottas is a really, really good shout. I'm happy with him in my team. So yeah, that pretty much sums up my thoughts. Like I say, we'll see what happens as to whether the qualifying or race goes ahead. And that's it for now. Follow me on Twitter, guys. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll catch up with you soon. Good luck for the weekend. I hope your teams do well. Bye.